Good evening, everyone. This is Luke Grand speaking. Can you all hear me out there?
Yeah.
We will begin tonight. That's a great question in the chat box by Jim about hey, could everybody just put in where they're from tonight in the chat box? It's kind of nice to see where everybody's at. I'll give you a few minutes to do that as I introduce the speakers. Our Farminar series for the winter is nearing its fifth. It's on its fourth one tonight, and next in 2 weeks from now, it'll be our last of the winter's Farminar series. We've had great turnout for this series, and if you missed any of the ones you see on your screen, you can access them on the archive library. Um, oh, excuse me. Thank you. Okay, so sorry, one note, if any of the presenters are touching the screen, keep in mind that affects all of our screens too. So thank you for that. Okay, so just a quick announcement. If you're not a PFI member, Practical Farmers of Iowa, we really would love for you to join. We're a great grassroots farmers organization, over 750 farm families strong, and we also would love your donation to help continue this series and other awesome online farmer-to-farmer networking events. And as I mentioned, you are welcome to view past Farminars for free in our online recorded archive library, practicalfarmers.org/Farminar. And I just want to make one more note. We are supported by great grant organizations. I wanted to mention two of them that are funding this series, the Farm Aid and Beginning Farmer Rancher Development Program. The USDA has some monies for competitive grants. We applied and got a great 3-year grant with them, and we really, really appreciate that federal support for farmer-to-farmer programming. Okay, so let's begin. A couple things to note. We have some great events coming up if you're in Iowa. Our cooperators meeting is just this Thursday and Friday, and I think my dates are wrong actually on that. Nope, they're right. The 10th and 11th, Thursday and Friday. That's a great opportunity, and we'll visit more a little bit about that. We have another series of the Farminars coming up this March through April 5th, 6 back-to-back, week after week Farminars. Instead of just every other week, we'll have every week in March and the first week of April with farmers sharing their knowledge for free on the internet. And we'd love to have all of you in attendance to that series as well. And finally, this summer, we're going to unveil a whole new host of field days with farmers hosting for free networking events on their farms. And that's just one great benefit of being a member is that you receive in the mail a field day guide, which lists all the locations and topics of on-farm field days. Our cooperators meeting is one of the greatest things about our organization. For over 23 years now, we've met every February. Our farmer members, over 60 or 70 farmers each year, come together and craft their research priorities. This is kind of a higher level event, very focused on research, on on-farm research, and it's a great opportunity to share ideas with other farmers and come up with some on-farm research projects that you can test out year after year. We'll help farmers get together with researchers and have great cooperation between academics and the practical farming world. And it's a great way to try bold, innovative farming techniques, try them out on your farm and see if they work. And we'll also help with follow-up and help with design implementation of the projects. That's our cooperators meeting. So tonight, our feature, Farm Fresh Eggs, Handlers, Licenses, and Profitability, with experienced poultry farmer Ty Johnson-Spratt and beginning farmer Theresa Gould. I'll just load up Ty's presentation here, and she may begin.
Hello,
Ty, can you
everybody.
hear us?
Yes, I can.
Great. Thank you. Go ahead. Sorry about that.
Are we ready?
Okay, Ty, you may begin when you're ready.
Okay, I had some questions from Theresa, and I'm going to try to answer those. I think the first question that she had related to profit. Eggs are a good draw to your farm and other products. They are not a high profit item, but that can vary during the year. Uh, the rate of lay also makes a difference on the chickens, the type of chickens you pick, the feed costs, whether you have dual purpose birds or not, and molting. Um, I'm not doing my slides right here. This is a typical day's gathering of eggs. We gather in the winter time about once a day, twice a day, in the summer up to 4 times. The second year we did turn a profit. The first year actually it started out as a hobby for physical therapy for back fusion that I had, so we didn't really keep adequate records on that for a business. We get between 24 to 30% profit margin on our eggs at retail prices. The feed cost, as we see here, chick cost, conversion rate is roughly 3.2 pounds of feed to produce 1 pound of eggs, and that's in the high production white leghorns. Efficient production life of the hen is about 1 to 2 years. We usually replace them after 2 years because we are animal welfare approved and they require us to keep them for 2 years just because they feel that that's best for the hen. Other expenses you will encounter are bedding, grit, oyster shell, electricity to brood, and to keep egg production going in winter if desired. The chickens will need at least 12 to 14 hours of light a day to continue to lay at their optimum. Water, propane gas, housing, equipment, waters, heaters, your upkeep on buildings, and something that beginning people usually don't know is that chickens take about 5 to 6 months before they start to lay their first eggs. The eggs are really small, as you can see in this picture here. The small one is a pullet egg. That's probably somebody's first egg. And a larger egg is probably a second-year hen. And you'll also get double and triple yolks during this time period because the chicken system hasn't had time to kind of get itself ironed out. So it will, chicken lays an egg every 26 hours approximately. So at that point in time, sometimes they'll keep an egg back and they won't lay it because they're not on sync with their system. So you'll get an egg yolk held back, put into the shell. And molting. This bird is ready to molt. She's out there right now. She's still laying eggs, but when they molt, they do cease laying at that time. And we are a licensed egg handler. In order to get your permit, we didn't know anything about it. We had a little restaurant up here in Elkhart, and we were selling eggs out of that without our permit. So we were told promptly by the food inspector that we needed to do that. So we contacted the Board of Inspections and Appeals, and they sent us a form to fill out, and they required us to send that application back with our fee. The fee goes by how many dozens of eggs you sell in a year. At that time, later, an inspector set a time and date to come to our farm. They don't inspect the chickens, but they do require that you show that you can wash, handle, and grade eggs. In order to do that, you'll need some chlorine bleach. You'll need test strips. If we had our camera, I had a little sample here, but you can get the test strips at any like restaurant supply. You can probably also get them at Bolton Hay here in Des Moines, and online you can find them there. You'll need a thermometer and an egg handler, which is basically just a bright light bulb. the eggs were gathered previously to her coming, and we rinse them in 90-degree water. And the sanitizing solution is made up with a little dishwashing detergent. We just use Dawn and enough bleach to make a 50 to 100 part per million solution. You use the test strip to kind of see how much bleach to add. I can't give you exact amount because your container that you're washing in or your sink will be different than mine. And the eggs, we put them in the solution for a few minutes. That kind of softens the debris, and then we rub them just a little bit to get off any feces or feathers or hay that's got stuck to them. Sometimes the chickens will break eggs, and that will get the bedding stuck onto them. So we make sure that's all done and clean. And then the eggs are washed, and we put them on a clean towel to air dry. For candling, after they're dried, we darken the room. We use our kitchen to do this. We don't need a special building or a special area. You can do it right in your kitchen. We have to determine if the eggs are clear of defects. Sometimes the chicken will let a little bit of its reproductive tissue come down along with the egg, and that goes inside the egg as a meat spot, a blood spot. Also, embryos can be found in there sometimes if you have roosters and you collect eggs that are laid on the floor. Sometimes the eggs will get into the bedding and you won't notice them for a few days or a few weeks, and you'll pick them up and put them in with your regular eggs. So we don't collect any floor eggs for eating. We give those to our farm cats here. They seem to enjoy them. Okay, the eggs are all then weighed and sorted according to weights. Here, this little chart kind of tells you how many ounces per dozen. And you can also go by the individual weight of the egg as well. And there's scales you can purchase that will tell you if your egg is large, medium, or small, and it goes by ounces. We also were told that we needed to use clean new egg cartons because we have an egg handler's license. If you use a carton that's been used, especially from, say, some of the eggs from the egg recall, and one of those egg yolks broke, it could perhaps taint your whole dozen. Also, the eggs must contain a packed on date, stamp. It's cheap, but you can buy it at eggcartons.com. You must also have your farm name and the egg safety statement, which tells you that eggs must be cooked to a certain temperature and to refrigerate them. We also sell quail, duck, and goose eggs, and they should all be clean, candled, packaged, labeled, and dated the same way the chicken eggs are done. And this is what your license will look like. When the inspector okays your process, they'll send it in the mail. They'll also, last year they gave us a copy on site. They had a little portable printer and everything, so they just got it right out for us that day. But this is what comes in the mail later. There's a lot of venues that we sell our eggs. We go to farmers markets and we sell quail eggs there. Those are always kind of interesting. They draw people to the table because they haven't seen them a lot. So we also had emu eggs when we raised emus. We sell them, like I said, at the farmers market. We also sell them at restaurants in town. And Iowa Food Co-op, that's a really good venue too. On-farm sales is especially good because there's no delivery, there is no discount or anything. People just come and get them. We also sell some to cryogenic place and for vaccines. And specialty grocers and gourmet markets, health food stores. We have some at Gateway. And to transport your eggs, they should be transported in coolers with ice packs and kept at 40 degrees or below for sale. Like I said before, we collect the eggs Oh, anywhere from 2 to 4 times a day from the chickens, depending on the weather. And we put them in refrigerators. Local prices here range from about $2.25 a dozen to $4 a dozen, depending on the specialty marketing factors such as animal welfare approved or humanely raised, omega-3 content, shell color, pasture raised. Ours are $3.85 a dozen right now, but may go up if feed continues to rise. These are a few sources. I mentioned earlier eggcartons.com, but it did not get to the slides. So that's a good place for egg cartons, your scales. They also have signs, that type of thing, yard signs. Cutler Supply, GQF incubators, waters, feeders, that they have really good equipment. And American Livestock Breed Conservancy is a really good organization for heritage, rare, and endangered poultry. They have lists of breeders that you can contact to purchase stock from. Animal Welfare Approved is a third party that audits family farms, and they'll certify you at no cost. You can't buy your way into this. I had one person come up to me at the farmer's market and said, "Boy, that's expensive to join," and I told her it was free. She did not believe me. They also provide marketing and labels for your certified products if you qualify. And Atra and Cat, they have a lot of good resources and publications. And they'll help you find answers to questions. Right now I'm working with an Amish processor. We're trying to install some air chilling, and they're helping me with that. We purchase our feed in bulk. Our feed is not organic at this point. I can't find anyone local that has it, that will sell it and deliver it. I found a mill about 2 hours away, but I have no way to get it back because they have no truck with an auger to fill the bin, and I can't get enough here in the pickup in 50-pound bags. It just wouldn't work for us, so we're still looking for that. We do raise meat birds, especially in the hoop houses that we have built here. I'm going to show you some slides of construction on those. It's a really simple process, and they've worked really well for us for about 3 years. This is what you'll need. You'll need 4x4s, 2 10-foot pieces, and 2 5s, and you can see that we use plastic conduit, and that is, we drill holes in the top of the frame and then arch the conduit over to the other side. After that step is done, we take plastic poultry netting because it's got smaller holes than we raise chicks in this. Sometimes we put them in, brood them in here too. Also, you'll need plywood, a piece of plywood, a set of hinges, a latch, and some tarps. And we attach the plastic poultry netting horizontally from the front to the back of the structure, and on one end, like the back end, we use plastic wire ties to do this. And inside you can see there's also a piece of metal electrical conduit that we use for the backbone to give extra stabilization to the structure itself. That's done before this slide was out of order, so sorry about that. Then we do this part with 2 people. One person goes inside and they take a Sharpie in there, like a marker, and the other person holds the plywood on the front, and we trace around the inside of the conduit, the arch, onto the plywood, and then cut that out with a jigsaw. The next thing we do is drill some holes in that too, so that we can attach it with the plastic wire ties. Also, we put a little door in. We've used 2 types of doors. This is one of the narrower ones. The other is a little wider in the front. This is probably good, but it's more difficult to get in and out, maybe 3 foot wide. And the other one is 4. This is a little more stable. It's just a matter of choice, I guess. Oops. And
There was a question, Ty, from somebody about regulations. How did you search around for the regulations for your poultry handler's license? Ty, can you hear me? I think we might have lost Ty momentarily. Theresa Oliver, can you hear me, or anybody in the chat box? Yep, you can hear me. Okay. I think we might have lost Ty temporarily with her internet. I wondered maybe Ty, can you hear us? Okay. Well, this has never happened before. That's why you were doing live stuff here, people. You get to think on your feet. So
I cannot advance
why
my
don't we switch
slide.
to Theresa temporarily?
Oh,
And you're back, Ty. Great. Say again, Ty. Ty, can you hear me, Ty? Hmm. Okay. Why don't we switch to Theresa's slideshow temporarily and hear Theresa's introduction and go back to Ty. Okay, Theresa?
Okay, I'm here. We've been
Great. I'll
flip-flopping
get a
with our
hold
names
of Ty Johnson-Spratt
with our
on the
farm.
phone
I
and
know
see if we
when
can figure out what's going on.
Do you want me to go ahead, Luke? Okay. Can everybody hear me? Okay. I feel like I lost Luke too.
Oh, go ahead, Theresa. Sorry, I'm looking for Ty's phone number so I can get in touch with her.
Okay, but people can hear me, right? Okay, we've been flip-flopping with our names, and I know in the emails that Luke sent out, we had Cornucopia Family Farms, and we recently heard from another farmer that he named his farm just to be a conversation piece. So we were talking about it, and we came up with Looney Acres. So I'll leave that as a conversation piece. If anybody has a question later, you can ask. And let's see, we'll go on to the next one. Our decision to go into farming grew out of a desire to have a family business, teach our children how to work, and to grow our own food. We also wanted to provide fresh, organic produce to others. This is why we decided to start growing a wide variety of vegetables. We dream of also raising organic chickens and poultry, Jersey cows, beef, horses, and sheep. We graduated from Illinois State Line Farm Beginnings course in 2010 and have been taking the CSA planning course at Michael Fields this past winter with hopes of starting a CSA next year. This year, our plan is to help another beginning farmer with her farm to gain more production and market experience. For our first season, which was last summer, we were fortunate to rent a 200 by 80 field from another State Line Farm Beginnings graduate. We rented her land, used her tractor, and water in exchange for produce. As beginning farmers in our first year of growing in a field of this size, we think we got the better end of the deal. Our children are involved in every aspect of our farm. We have children capable of doing everything from administrative work to harvesting and selling. This third photo is where our 2-year-old captured the heart of the market coordinator. We have had a huge learning curve from going from a 5 by 5 backyard garden plot to a 200 by 80 field, which included learning to drive a tractor. This is my husband's favorite farm activity. We had about 9 to 11 80 by 4 foot rows. Our landowner even provided us hay that our horses would not eat to mulch with. We think it really helped cut down on the weeds. I think we would have been weeding a whole lot more than we did. Our farm is all about working and learning to work together. This picture says it all. This is my husband tilling. He had a lot of fun. It was very satisfying to see all of our hard work of the spring pay off. Organic corn, zucchini, summer squash, and cucumbers. We only had 4 cucumber plants make it through the season, but more than enough cucumbers. We were pretty amazed. Our children's favorite part was the harvesting and eating. They would pick off the plants all the time, which was fun. They were amazed. But I think most of us would choose the harvesting over weeding any day. Now this is a funny thing. We had to learn to laugh at ourselves. We couldn't tell at first if this was a pumpkin or a watermelon. Now, that might be funny to some, but we really didn't know. So once it started turning orange, we knew it was a pumpkin. Our first growing season went well. We had our 8th child mid-August, which slowed down how often we went to the field. We were about 45-50 minutes from our field, so it was quite a lot of travel time. But this little guy filled our lives with so much more than just fresh produce. We discovered that farming is a lot of hard work, but fun as well. And that's all I have besides my questions. I have about 3 slides of questions for Ty.
All right, let's see if Ty's connection's working again. Ty, if you want to just go ahead and hit your mic button.
Yeah, it's working.
Great.
Cow. Okay, where were we?
Let's jump in at the questions. So Theresa and Ty, do you want to just jump in right on this beginning farmer question slide, and then we'll catch up Ty back where we left off with you after the question.
I think you answered most of the first ones there, didn't you? We could start at the very last, since you basically answered those first few, and just the last one. Do you hatch your own eggs out?
Yes, we do. I do have slides on that, but we'll look at those
Okay.
later, I guess. We hatch chickens, turkeys, ducks, geese. We even
Okay.
hatched guineas for a while, but we don't do
Are
those
there any
any longer.
pros?
It's a good. Yeah, there's a lot of pros. It allows us to be sustainable. We don't have to buy chicks and bring them in stressed. It leads to a lot less mortality rate when they're young. Also, biosecurity. We don't bring any disease in from other chicks that might be coming to the farm. Plus,
Right.
it's a lot of fun. The cons, I think, the cons would be not very many. It is a little more work, but and you do have to plan your schedule as to 3 weeks ahead of time before you want chickens to start to grow for meat. Then you need to plan three weeks ahead of that date.
Okay. I'll move this. And there, what breeds of hens do you prefer, and which ones do you find are the best layers, at least for you and where you are?
Um, we like the heritage chickens. There's a lot of reasons that we do, and most of them is because I prefer the endangered and chickens that are, a little more unusual than a regular person, I guess. As far as brown egg layers, I like black Australorps, buff Orpingtons, barred rocks, white rocks, Rhode Island Reds are very good, New Hampshires as well. There's probably others, but those are the ones that I've had
Okay, I rec
some experience with. And for white egg layers, I think if I was going to pick a white egg layer, the best chicken for that would be a white leghorn. And those are really super layers. They'll lay an egg almost every
okay.
day.
I've heard a couple of those. My daughter probably would have recognized more names than I did. I saw in your photos that you do use the electrical fencing. I just was trying to get a picture of like how you had everything set up, and your photos did that great. Do you use any solar panels at all?
We use solar chargers. I purchased one at the tractor supply store, and it seemed to work pretty well, except for when there was large weeds and grass that grew up around it. We left it in one place. We had turkeys in it, and they
Okay.
could kind of get out of that. Also, the weeds tendency to short it out. The chickens are usually a little bit better behaved than the turkeys were, but I think that our favorite is probably the 110-volt plug-in direct current. So that seems to work
Okay.
best for us.
Let's see, that was just and I guess my next question would be just any tips for beginning farmers who want to try their hand at having a flock of hens.
That's a good question. I think that if I were to give a tip to someone, I would probably say start small and see how you like it. A lot of people think that chickens aren't a lot of work, but I can attest that they are. We do get a lot of them, especially the meat birds that we move around every day or two or three. That can become quite a chore. We had approximately, I'd say, 3,000 birds here at one time during the summer, and that was enough work for two people full time all day. We raised a total of 5,000 last year. And that's all chickens, ducks, geese, quail,
Wow.
all kinds of things.
Now, have you ever had any experience with donating to local food pantries? I was just wondering if there's any laws for that. If I don't know if it's any different than So,
Yeah, we have donated to a food bank here in town. They do require that the eggs are come from a licensed facility, though. You can sell eggs off your farm without a license and at some farmers markets, and others require that you do have a license. But if you want to sell them to any institution, school, grocery stores, that type of thing, you do need your egg vendor
Okay.
license.
And then you already answered that with your previous the first part of your presentation. And then I was just wondering more about your specialty birds and why you've chosen the types that you have, and how you've made, even your meat business profitable. I've heard that going into the meat side of poultry is more profitable than eggs. So that's what I'm kind of interested in knowing more about.
I think that the meat birds are definitely more profitable than the eggs. Eggs, we charge $3.85 a dozen for ours, so we figure 20 to probably 32% of that is profit. It's not a real, big money maker. The chickens are a little bit better. The breed of chicken that we use for meat is a sustainable bird. We switched to a dual-purpose system this year where our meat chickens are actually our egg chickens. So we can use the eggs for table egg sales, and if we don't, or if we want to keep some back to hatch, we can do that as well. That way we don't have to bring chicks in, and we don't have any eggs ever go to waste. Let's see, the original question was you were trying to find out what types of birds, I guess, that we raise and why. The meat chickens it's a French breed of a broiler type, a range broiler, a red roe. And you can purchase parent stock from like Isa Hubbard and places like that. They are really, really good birds. They are so healthy compared to Cornish cross. They don't get any of the health problems that the Cornish cross do, like leg and joint problems. They actually grow their skeletal system before they put on the meat and fat, as opposed to the Cornish cross just basically puts on all the weight before the joint and the bones are ready to carry that. So they're also more adaptable to heat and cold. Even though lack of feathers, they're still better in the cold. So I picked those for that purpose. Plus, they grow longer. Another reason we do that is because the chefs in town, they enjoy them. They think that growing them longer gives them a little more texture to the meat, and they can be used in different ways than regular chicken. Also, the additional growing time does add flavor to the meat. And the thin skin on these birds is almost translucent when they're processed. It's really fine thin skin, and it crisps up marvelously like a potato chip almost. It's really delicious. We do raise geese and guinea hens. I think a lot of that has to do with my French grandmother, and she always had a farm with poultry here when she moved to the United States. And I enjoyed those birds, and how she cooks them is delicious. So I guess that's part of the reason. We have an interest in culinary arts too. My son just started culinary school, so I guess that kind of goes with our theme a little bit. We had also raised emus about 4 years ago, and due to our age, and my husband broke a leg and can't run, those emus were a little bit hard for us to handle because they're kind of wild and flighty, and they can run 35 miles an hour. So we decided to let those go. Geese, I said geese, and ducks also. Those ducks seem to have a resurgence in culinary presence in the restaurants. Seem to really enjoy those. A lot of chefs are putting them back on the menu. We find that the restaurants are also taking an interest in locally produced food, so that's another reason that we are catering to the restaurants.
Well, taste is very important, so I can see why you would choose those. And so how do you process your birds? Now, is there a processing plant there near to you?
There There is not one really close. The closest one would be Kimballton, and I think they're about 90 minutes from here. We use them. We also use Martson Farm in Green, Iowa, which is about 2 hours away. And we are working with an Amish processor down in Bloomfield, and we will be probably distributing some of their products this year, and we're helping them set up air chilling and some cryo packing too. They'll have a really nice product, and they'll be able to offer that service to other farmers in town and in the state. I mean, there's also B&B processing in Phosphorus. That's a little too far for us. I think that's about 4 hours away, and supposedly there's going to be a new USDA plant opening for poultry this year, which will be in Sioux Falls. So I don't know if we'll be using them or not.
It sounds like they're still pretty far away for you. I know that chicken farmers around here have said, to process they have to go 3 hours. Because there's some sort of law keeping them, like we're farther north, we're close to the Wisconsin border, but we can't go up into Wisconsin to process even though it's closer due to some legality. So,
Yeah, it's usually you have to have your poultry inspected at a state processor unless you can find a USDA processor, which are few and far between. If there is a USDA processor in your state, you can sell that meat anywhere, but they usually like batches of 2,000 chickens at a time, which is a little bit beyond my scope of raising them.
That's a lot. And then these are my last few questions. I was just wondering, what do you do to ensure your flocks stay healthy? Now, one of the reasons have to be how you are hatching your chicks out. That must, contribute to the health of the flock, as you stated before, right? What else?
Yeah, I agree with what else? Well, it starts actually a little bit even before that with the parent stock. You make sure your birds are healthy and they have an adequate diet. If there's any vitamin deficiencies, it will show up in the chicks themselves. They'll get different ailments and diseases from those deficiencies, including like crippled and different things like that. We usually the chicks upon hatching go directly into a brooder, and we give them vitamins the first week of life, and we make sure that the conditions are clean and dry. That's super important just because wet and heat at the heat lamps creates a lot of bacteria, and even if they don't die, they can get sick in those conditions. Another thing that's important is to make sure they're all eating and drinking. Sometimes you'll get birds that won't, and with a little help, they can be coaxed into it. Also, their area, and make sure they're not piling up on each other. Turkeys that we raise sometimes have a tendency to do that. They'll just pile up for absolutely no reason. And just kind of have to watch them carefully and separate them and make sure they know there's another heat map to go on to. They're not real bright, but also no corners in your brooder area. Make sure if you put them in the building that you have the corners rounded off. We use some flexible masonite to put around the corners so it's kind of rounded. And of course, using our feed lamps, waterers, and feeders to give everybody a chance at the same time to eat. Biosecurity comes in here too. If anybody visits our place, especially if they have poultry, we request that they don little plastic booties to walk around in our areas. We also till high traffic areas, and we receive those if the birds have eaten them a lot. And also just generally watching and inspecting the birds twice a day. That really seems to help with any problems. Also, keeping the stress levels low on the chickens. It's important that you don't change too much or get them too excited, and let them exhibit their normal behaviors. Um, don't overcrowd them. We have a set of rules that we go by. According to animal welfare, we give them 8 to 10 inches of perch space, provide dust breathing areas, that type of thing. All of these things seem to really help, and we haven't really had a problem yet with any disease that's been, extreme.
Right. So I guess little boys chasing after chickens wouldn't be good for them, huh? That's one of the struggles we've had. Well, our farmer that we rented from, she had chickens, but they were free range, so they would sneak into, even though our field was all fenced in, they could find spots to get into. And of course, we didn't really want them near our vegetables, but we also tried to encourage the children not to chase them, just to try to lift them back over the fence. But it didn't always work out that way. So learning. And how do you yeah. Okay. The geese are a little more aggressive, right? How do you house your flocks during the winter then? Do you still use your hoop houses?
No, in the winter, all of the meat birds are gone because they're seasonal, of course, because we have no pasture in Iowa, unfortunately, in the wintertime. So those are all gone probably by October, the end of October. Then all we have left is turkeys. The turkeys don't do well in the hoop houses. We had raised white turkeys in those houses once, and they thought they looked like really fine perches and perched on them and collapsed, and so they have a different type of house. Live and learn, I guess, on that one. The rest of the chickens, the egg layers and the breeding turkeys that we have, they're kept in stationary buildings, and those we provide heat and water. Just the heat is mainly to keep the pipes from freezing because we have an automatic watering system, and we had that burst when the heater quit, and it was a mess. There was about a foot of water inside the building, and chickens were wet and cold. It was
I'm going to jump in here for a minute, if I may. We're going to take these last two questions while we switch over back to your slides, Ty. And I think that might be a better way. It might be best answered with your slides in the background. I wanted to also mention briefly as I switch these slideshows for folks to put in the poll question on the right. The poll questions help us gauge how many folks we're being served with this Farminar. And shoot me a private chat message with your email address, and I will send you the survey link after the end of this Farminar so we can see how we're doing to try to increase the quality of these each time we do it. And so Ty and Theresa, go ahead and continue. Thank you.
Okay, now I have to find my place again. I guess, what would you consider the best thing is about raising poultry, and the worst, if you have any?
Okay, Ty, I'm going to boot you out of this Farminar, and I'm going to have you jump back in. Hopefully that'll reset the Um, unless you can hear us, Ty, can you hear us? Okay. Shoot. Okay, sorry about that, Theresa. I just booted Ty so she can join back in. I'm going to call her. There was a couple questions from the audience about why you decided to start getting into farming, and I wondered if those questions were answered, and if we couldn't have a little back and forth about that until I get Ty back on.
Sure. Well, in 2008, my husband got laid off, and we were trying to figure out what we were supposed to do after that. So we came up with farming, and that's when we applied to State Line Farm Beginnings, probably in July, August of 2000. Actually, that would be 2009, because he was unemployed for nearly 2 years. It was about 20 months. And we also volunteered at Prairie Crossings in Grays Lake, Illinois. They have an incubator program there, and we wanted to see how we did just taking care of animals, because our focus was, on feeding our family at that point, and because his unemployment ran out about a year later. He had an extension, and then about a year later it ran out. And then we had family helping us, and I was picking up odd jobs here and there, and so was he. So that's kind of how it all evolved into us getting into farming. My husband has a background in retail management purchasing, and I currently work from home as a virtual assistant too. So we're just kind of trying to feel our way around this. I don't know if that answers your question or if it, brings up more, but that's kind of how it all evolved.
That's interesting. There's lots of really. I think every single time I ask that question, I'm amazed by what answers I hear from folks about got into farming.
Yeah, I grew up in the country. Oh, great.
Hi.
Hi.
Okay, where were we?
Where were we? I was just asking one of the last two questions, and what would you consider the best and the worst in raising poultry, if you have anything?
Okay. Yeah, I think the worst would be the weather.
Okay.
I think over the last few years we've had a tornado come by and took out one of our chicken houses and one of our flocks. We've also had rain last year. That was terrible. The chickens would go out and graze. It would rain. They'd get wet. Some of the young ones didn't like that. They'd die because they got cold. We also had problems with pasture and grass. They'd eat it, and it was so wet, and they'd pull the roots out. So we have some replanting to do this year. I think that would be the worst part of raising chickens outside. But other than that, we really do enjoy it. We're going to try it again this year, so it must be okay.
And how many years have you been doing it then?
This will be 6.
Okay.
6 years now.
Okay. And so you didn't always farm then, or at least raise chickens?
No, I used to raise parrots when I lived in Florida, and I don't know, that translated into chickens in Iowa, I guess, but it makes more sense.
Okay. And then I guess my last question was just any lessons you've learned along the way that you think the rest of us should know in advance?
Yeah, don't try to get too big too fast. Last year we added a lot of chickens, and like I said, the weather could not be worse. There's an example on that slide right there. We put chicks to brood in the houses, and the snow came, and then the rain. It was kind of a muddy mess here most of the year.
Oh, wow.
So just try not to get too big too fast, and just go slow. And develop your markets, because if you start with a flock of, several hundred chickens, and then you go to, you'll have no market for those eggs immediately, so you need to develop it slowly. I'd say a couple of years, and then, then grow.
Wow. Okay. And that ends my questions. So if you want to take over with your slides, that would be great. Unless Luke has anything else.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll continue with your slides, Ty, and also this is a great time for folks that are tuned in can ask their questions in the chat box, and Ty can answer those for the remainder. And like I said, Theresa, if you have other questions that come up, feel free to just to put those questions in.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay, getting back to the hoop houses here. Let's see. The quality of life is definitely better as a farmer. I enjoy being my own boss, and the only problem with being self-employed, you have no one to blame but yourself if something goes wrong. But it is a good feeling when you do something right, and you have some nice product to sell for that too. The hoop houses here kind of show that we do tie them down just because of winds and that type of thing. And then last year it snowed when we put the chicks in there to brood them. We added heat lamps into these houses, and 3 tarps on top of each one. There's also straw bales around the edges on the sides, and that kept the additional snow and wind out. And this is the type of chicken. These are some of our roosters that we use. Really like the breed, and they do reproduce naturally, and they do reproduce true. And we are setting up a hatchery this year. We also raise heritage turkeys. We have sweetgrass, blue slate, golden reds, chocolate turkey, Narragansett, and black Spanish. Like the baby blue slate hatchery. And these are some of our egg layers or breeders. We usually give 1 nest box for every 4 hens. That's the way to make sure that everybody can get in a nest box. However many nest boxes you have, you'll always have a chicken trying to get in with another chicken and laying eggs and partners, I guess. Do we vaccinate your layers? No, we don't vaccinate for Merrick's or coccidia. The incidence of coccidia is probably high, but we don't have deaths from it. I think ranging them outside and putting different areas for them to graze in allows them to become healthier and more immune to it. Some feeds have coccidia in them, but we don't use that either. Against the grass from the co-op, it does not have coccidia in it. Well, this was some of the other breeds that I would recommend. Also, something about the brown egg layers are a little bit friendlier birds. It seems to me the white egg layers are, they have a tendency to be more flighty and nervous. And in order to determine if you want to do a purpose hen for meat and eggs, they do eat more food. It makes your profit margin on eggs smaller, but you can also raise them for meat, and you do not have to buy in chicks because you can hatch your own. You'll need to choose your egg color and temperament desired. We say white egg birds are flighty and nervous. Select a breed that fits in with your characteristics. Weather can be a factor if you do not have feeding in your houses, because the chickens can get frozen combs, and that can be real serious in places like Iowa when it's 7 below out like tonight. And that can cause sterility in the roosters also. These are some production type egg layers that we hadn't mentioned previously. Cinnamon queens, gold pheasants, red pheasants, gold comets. These are all cross genetics and they will not reproduce what the parents were. This is part of our heritage flock. We've got all different kinds in there. This shows some of our chickens, our heritage chickens, out in the portable fencing. We also use this around our stationary buildings too. That will allow us to be able to put the chickens out in 4 different areas. And that way they don't have to be on any one place too much. And that also helps to control coccidia somewhat. We also give them the garden when we're done with it, the market garden at the end of the year. We mentioned on collard greens here.
They like those greens.
And they clean up that garden so well. These are emus that we used to raise that we do not do any longer.
They're cute.
They would run, through their run, they would run from one end to the other, and by the time they got to the other end, they would hit the 6-foot fence and just climb right over it. They'd have escapees all the time.
Wow.
These are some Toulouse geese, goslings that we raise. We also raise the white-ended geese too. And white turkeys. We do buy in white turkeys because they do not reproduce naturally. So we usually buy these in for grocery stores. We'll raise them for grocery stores and for the farmers market, the winter farmers market in Des Moines. There's some of our heritage birds. We try to keep them in the fence, but like I said, they're not very cooperative, and we can clip wings and whatnot, and they still get out. These are some of the guineas that we raise. We don't raise too many of them. It's more of a super specialty item. When these are processed, they have like purple and yellow skin, so it's a different thing for people to look at when they're purchasing it. John, you want to know about raising chickens for eggs or meat within city limits. You can still raise some chickens in town. I think you need to check with your local laws on that. I know that some areas are letting people raise maybe 10, 15 chickens in a flock in city limits, but no roosters. Meat birds, you wouldn't have to worry about that because usually they're going to process before they crow, so it will be a possibility. And ducklings, we raised about 900 ducks last year. They're really cute for about 2 weeks, and then they get messy. They're just real. They love to make mud pies and dabble in water and mud. We also raised some peacocks. We've got probably about 12 right now, and we use these. Their feathers we sell at the farmers market. They will molt once a year and drop their feathers, and we pick them up and wash them and sell them for $2 a piece down at the farmers market. So each peacock scale's worth between $300 to $600. Here's the poultry processors that we use. There's a link up top here, and that one is for Valley View poultry processing. And this is starting the chicks off in a breeder house. We try to make sure that everybody's got access to food and water so that they can all eat at the same time. Some more of that heritage meat. And there's my husband filling up the runs. We'd like to do that too. That seems to help with house sanitation, and the birds really enjoy. Every spring, they'll go out and follow him. They're not afraid of that killer at all. And they'll eat bugs, worms, whatever. Have I ever had a fire in my brooder house? Yes. Almost a fire. The lamp, heat lamp fell into the bedding, which is pine shavings that are dry, and I caught it before it was a full-fledged fire. It was smoking in there pretty bad. Watch your chickens. I check on them a couple times a day. And that's a white leghorn rooster. That's an Americana. They lay blue-green eggs. We are switching over to insurance right now that we can actually cover our birds with. We had a problem getting that before because the insurance that we had did not cover the market garden or the birds. But I think probably within the next month we'll have insurance on the birds. These are the white turkeys in the field that we rent.
Do you find that the turkeys are harder to raise?
Turkeys are a lot harder to raise. They're harder to start because a lot of them don't learn to eat and drink properly. They also pile up in piles and smother each other. Especially the white turkeys are really, really bad. I think they bred the brains out of those. Heritage turkeys are better. They need to pile up, and you can teach them to eat by putting some little balls of foil or dimes in their feeders or waters. They like shiny things, and that attracts their attention, and they'll go after it and peck at it, and then they'll learn from that that it's actually something good. For predators, we use a lot of live traps. We have had owls, hawks, dogs, coyotes, raccoons, possums, mink, and people. We actually had 50 white turkeys stolen off property this year that we rented. And I know they were taken because each predator kind of leaves a clue as to what it was. An owl will eat intestines and feathers, hawks will eat feathers, raccoons will eat the heads off of things and not bother with anything else. Dogs will just kill them and leave them there. And these were all the large turkeys, and they were all gone. So you kind of have a feeling they were taken. No, we don't have rollout nests. We use regular natural nesting material like hay or straw. Use hay in the winter especially because the chickens eat it also, and it's good for the donuts. Every day I spend at least an hour cleaning eggs, cleaning, sorting, packaging eggs for the day. And it varies also when the chickens lay more, you won't have as many. When they reach peak production, it could be up to an hour and a half. In the winter, we do let the chickens outside when it's over 25 degrees. They like to get out still. We usually keep them on the runs during this time because not so many of them go out, and there's really nothing outside for them to eat other than snow, so we keep them inside and inside the runs.
Sorry to interrupt, Ty. There was a question asked about price sensitivity in eggs and broiler markets. What's your thought on that question?
Price sensitivity in the market for eggs and meat. I think that it is somewhat price sensitive. However, if you can develop your market and acquire, you can overcome that. We from the first year that we sold market eggs at the farmers market in Des Moines, we sold them for $2 a dozen. That was 3 years ago, and I had people complaining all the time. Now, we're up to $3.85 a dozen, and people don't buy them. This is the inside of our house, just showing that we do go out during the winter time. This slide shows our watering system. We have water dug into the house. And from there it goes up from a hose to the gauge or regulator on top. And then it is further divided by the rubber tubing that leads to the bell waters. That's really nice because you don't have to water that. That's a lot of time and chore. So it eliminates a lot of that. As long as it's working good, it works great. If it doesn't work, you've got problems. And this is the second heater we've had installed in this house. The other one had a little bit of a problem, so instead of having to wait for 3 weeks for a part, we needed another one. We put this one in last week. Also, ventilation is important in the chicken's housing. We have 2 fans that should provide cross ventilation for the birds. These are on timers and they go off, even in the winter, especially in the winter, for about 5 minutes every hour. And peacocks like to use in laughter all the time. I think that's it. That's the last one.
Well, thank you, Ty.
You're welcome.
Did you find at markets, especially farmers markets, that you had certain customers? I don't know if you had some blue eggs. I know blue eggs are a novelty to some and they like it. Or did you have some that just liked all brown or all white eggs?
Yeah, mostly I think brown is the most popular. Some people believe that all brown eggs are farm eggs, even if they're not. It seems to be the most popular color at the market. I do have some customers that like all blues. And, I think that our dozens that we sell at the grocery stores, the multicolored ones kind of catch people's attention a little bit more. And yeah, once people understand that the blue egg tastes just like the brown egg, then they're okay with it.
Can you hear me, Ty?
Yes, I can.
Theresa, can you hear me? Okay. I had a question up here. Someone was asking how far can eggs grown in Iowa travel? What is the do you cap your distance from your farm, Ty, or do you just sell to whoever sends you an email?
For eggs, I'm sorry, I'm not hearing you well. I think you can probably sell eggs that were grown in Iowa anywhere. It would just depend, on how how you got them there. You could probably mail them. As far as recommending people to do multiple enterprises, I think it's a good idea. We do vegetables and poultry also. We're not specializing in vegetables by any means, but sometimes at the farmer's market, people come for the vegetables and end up buying eggs or chicken. Um, Vegetables are less expensive and do draw the customers to our table. And any vegetables that aren't perfect can go to our family or the chickens, for example. So, and the chickens manure feeds the garden, so it's kind of a good partnership there. Paul, I also keep my personal eggs on the counter. I know that they're supposed to be refrigerated, and all our eggs for sale are refrigerated, but I often have an egg basket on the counter full of eggs for us. Do I limit sales to people at a distance from our farm? Not really. We've had people come here from Minnesota, and they've purchased eggs. I don't limit it, but it's not usually happening. It's mostly local people within the Des Moines, Ames, Ankeny, Iowa City, probably those areas. We also, most of our eggs are about 5 days old maximum when we sell them to the customer. It's usually not any more than that. Usually because of the fact that we don't have enough eggs to go around. Most of the time we're sold out. If we take 50 dozen to a farmer's market on Saturday, we're usually out from, we start at 7, we're usually out by, I'd say 10 o'clock at the latest. Usually we don't have very many. Capital expense for startup poultry farm for sale to farmers markets. Well, I guess estimated. Do you want meat birds or egg layers? I think you would probably have to have eggs. Okay. For eggs, it depends on the size of your flock, but if your chickens run about $2 a piece, and you have 100 chickens, that's a couple $100. You'd have to have waters. The hoop houses that we make, you could keep them in effectively for the summertime until you had a stationary building to put them in. Your fencing would run you with charger probably about $400. Electricity for that the summer period of time would be maybe 50. Water. If you want everything set up like we have it here, you'd probably have to spend, I'd say, about roughly $5,000 with the flocks, the buildings, the water, the heat, right in that area. Additional costs could be determined by, what breed of chicken and how many eggs they lay. Chad, we use the heater. I don't know if I can get that slide back. I'll try. We use a propane heater. There it is. It's hung in the ceiling. We do have an additional platform on the top of it because peacocks have a tendency to roost in there. We purchased this heater a couple weeks ago when our other one failed. It was about $600. As far as propane cost goes, my husband's in charge of that, so I guess I really don't know exactly. We fill the tank, but this year we haven't used that much. We did add insulation to the house other than the silver that you see on the ceiling. We do have the walls insulated with foam and wood covering over that. So yeah, -10 is bad for chickens. It's bad for everybody, I guess. Yeah, the wind is it's a bad thing for the chickens, especially if they have shelter. That helps quite a bit. You could even add a heat lamp if you wanted to, um, but they seem to do pretty well, especially the ones with smaller combs. Combs do have a tendency to freeze and wattles also. Carrie, we will do guineas next year. Guineas are interesting. They have a tendency to fly up into the trees, and that's okay. But if you're trying to pack them into crates for the processor, we always pack the birds at night, and it's difficult to get them down. They like to eat a lot of bugs. They eat ticks. We've noticed that also those Asian beetles that we have infestations of every spring and fall. We don't have quite those anymore, so I don't know if they're eating them or not. They're very loud. Keep them away from your bedroom window. Otherwise you will not sleep at night. Chad, you deep bed the chickens in hay, and they have solid shelter with no wind. Yeah, they do eat a lot more in the winter just to keep their warmth up, I think. That's probably what's going on with them. Also, sometimes when it's cold, they won't lay as much. I don't know if you're using light and that type of thing, but a light might help them. If they can get 12 to 14 hours of light a day, they will probably resume laying eggs if they're not molting. Our winter feeding, we feed them full feed all the time. We also use a little bit higher carbohydrate and a little less protein. That seems to give them a little bit more energy for feeding themselves. Actually, since ours are at 55 degrees, that's what we keep their area at. They're not going to eat near as much as birds that don't have a heated house. So it's just a little bit higher carbohydrates than protein. And it's usually around maybe 16% protein as opposed to a little bit higher in the summer and spring. We do keep our layers for 2 years. After that time, we usually find homes for them. I have a friend and several other people that are kind of on a list that take our chickens. This year, we gave them to a little boy that started an egg CSA, and he was very happy to get them. He didn't have to buy them from his egg proceeds from the last chickens that he got from us, so he's doing well with them. Paul, we also give our scratch and corn, cracked corn, at least once a day. Usually I'll do that anyway, despite the weather, just because I find it a good way to be able to observe the chickens. If I've got corn, they'll come right out, so I can look at them all.
Do you recommend buying, you said that you sold your chickens or gave your chickens to the little boy, but I don't know, I guess from my perspective, would a 2-year-old chicken be, I guess, worth getting to start off with? I mean...
Yeah, they'll still produce. They won't produce at, their first rates of maybe 80%. They'll probably go down to 70, but for a professional or somebody that actually has a real business doing it, it's probably not as good, just to keep the chickens after that period of time. I do have some pet chickens that are 6 and 7 years old, but those aren't counted into the flocks they're laying. They're just kind of a pet.
Okay, yeah.
Chad, that's what we do too. If we name it, we usually keep it, so we try not to name many. We have 2 chickens here that are 7 years old, I think, and they've both been in Iowa lottery commercials. One was sitting on golden eggs, and the other one was a rooster that they superimposed over a bale of $100 bills. They made good money that year. Yes, Carrie, I would definitely do the poultry thing. I do like the birds a lot, and they keep it very interesting. When you think you know what you're doing, they kind of switch it up on you and keep you on your toes. There's always something new that comes up. And it's a continual learning process as far as that goes. They change things all the time, and they'll think of some really unusual things. We had a bad thing happen. It rained last year a lot. There was a bucket that had gotten left outside. A chicken got in it and drowned. Just little things like that kind of keep you on your toes. But it is interesting.
Thank you very much, Ty and Theresa, for your time this evening. I really wanted to say thank you for sharing your knowledge and your questions. Really great slideshows. Boy, I just really appreciate you guys for what you've done tonight, and I'm sure everyone else in the chat box will let you know how they felt too. There's still a chance for everyone to put in their poll question response, trying to get a good gauge on how many folks are watching. So if you haven't done that already, just click the radio button next to the number of folks that are watching with you tonight, and put your email in the chat box, either as a private message to me or in the everyone chat box, so I can send you a link for the survey, so you can find out how to make this better. And once again, thank you, Theresa and Ty, for putting this on tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you, Luke. It was fun.